Hermione, what happened? We've gone back in time, Hermione whispered, lifting the chain off Harry's neck in the darkness. 3 hours back. Harry found his own leg and gave it a very hard pinch. It hurt a lot, which seemed to rule out the possibility he was having a very bizarre dream. But, shh, listen, someone's coming. I think it might be us. Hermione had her ear pressed against the cupboard door. Footsteps across the hall. Yes, I think that's us going down to Hagrid's. Are you telling me, Harry whispered, that we're here in this cupboard and we're out there too? Yes, said Hermione, her ear still glued to the cupboard door. I'm sure it's us. It doesn't sound like more than 3 people, and we're walking slowly because we're under the invisibility cloak. She broke off, still listening intently. We've gone down the front steps. Hermione sat down on an upturned bucket, looking desperately anxious, but Harry wanted a few questions answered. Where did you get that hourglass thing? It's called a time turner, Hermione whispered, and I got it from Professor McGonagall on our first day back. I've been using it all year to get to all my classes. Professor McGonagall made me swear I wouldn't tell anyone. She had to write all sorts of letters to the Ministry of Magic so I could have one. She had to tell them that I was a model student and that I'd never, ever use it for anything except my studies. I've been turning it back so I could do hours over again. It's how I've been doing several lessons at once, see? But, Harry, don't you understand what Dumbledore wants us to do? Why did he tell us to go back 3 hours? How is that going to help Sirius? Harry stared at her shadowy face. There must be something that happened around now that he wants us to change, he said slowly. What happened? We were walking down to Hagrid's 3 hours ago. This is 3 hours ago, and we are walking down to Hagrid's, said Hermione. We just heard ourselves leaving. Harry frowned. He felt as though he were screwing up his whole brain in concentration. Dumbledore just said we could save more than one innocent life. And then it hit him. Hermione, we're going to save Buckbeak. But how will that help Sirius? Dumbledore said he just told us where the window is. The window of Flitwick's office. Where they've got Sirius locked up. We've got to fly Buckbeak up to the window and rescue Sirius. Sirius can escape on Buckbeak. They can escape together. From what Harry could see of Hermione's face, she looked terrified. If we manage that without being seen, it'll be a miracle. Well, we've got to try, haven't we? Said Harry. He stood up and pressed his ear against the door. Doesn't sound like anyone's there. Come on, let's go. Harry pushed open the door to the closet. The entrance hall was deserted. As quickly and quietly as they could, they darted out of the closet and down the stone steps. The shadows were already lengthening, the tops of the trees in the forbidden forest gilded once more with gold. If anyone is looking out of the window, Hermione squeaked, looking up at the castle behind them. We'll run for it, said Harry determinedly. Straight into the forest, all right? We'll have to hide behind a tree or something and keep a lookout. Okay, but we'll go around by the greenhouses, said Hermione breathlessly. We need to keep out of sight of Hagrid's front door, or we'll see us. We must be nearly at Hagrid's by now. Still working out what she meant, Harry set off at a sprint, Hermione behind him. They tore across the vegetable gardens to the greenhouse, paused for a moment behind them, then set off again, as fast as they could, skirting around the whomping willow, tearing around the shelter of the forest. Safe in the shadows of the trees, Harry turned around. Seconds later, Hermione arrived beside him, panting. Right, she gasped. We need to sneak over to Hagrid's. Keep out of sight, Harry. They made their way silently through the trees, keeping to the very edge of the forest, and then, as they glimpsed the front of Hagrid's house, they heard a knock upon his door. They moved quickly behind a wide oak trunk and peered out of either side. Hagrid had appeared in his doorway, shaking and white, looking around to see who had knocked, and Harry heard his own voice. It's us. We're wearing the invisibility cloak. Let us in and we can take it off. You shouldn't have come, Hagrid whispered. He stood back, then shut the door quickly. This is the weirdest thing we've ever done, Harry said fervently. Let's move along a bit, Hermione whispered. We need to get near Buckbeak. They crept through the trees until they saw the nervous hippogriff tethered to the fence around Hagrid's pumpkin patch. Now, Harry whispered. No, Hermione said. If we steal him now, the committee people will think Hagrid set him free. We've got to wait until they've seen he's tied outside. That's going to give us about 60 seconds, said Harry. This was starting to seem impossible. At that moment, there was a crash of breaking china from inside Hagrid's cabin. That's Hagrid breaking the milk jug, Hermione whispered. I'm going to find Scabbers in a moment. Sure enough, a few minutes later, they heard Hermione's shriek of surprise. Hermione, said Harry suddenly, what if we just run in there and grab Pettigrew? No, said Hermione in a terrified whisper. Don't you understand? We're breaking one of the most important wizarding laws. Nobody's supposed to change time. Nobody. You heard Dumbledore. If we're seen, we'd only be seen by ourselves and Hagrid. Harry, what do you think you'd do if you saw yourself bursting into Hagrid's house? Said Hermione. I'd think I'd gone mad, said Harry. Or I'd think there was some dark magic going on. Exactly. You wouldn't understand. You might even attack yourself, don't you see? Professor McGonagall told me what awful things have happened when wizards have meddled with time. Loads of them ended up killing their past or future selves by mistake. Okay, it was just an idea. I just thought... But Hermione nudged him and pointed towards the castle. Harry moved his head a few inches to get a clear view of the distant front doors. Dumbledore, Fudge, the old committee member, and McNair, the executioner, were coming down the steps. We're about to come out, breathed Hermione. And sure enough, moments later, Hagrid's back door opened, and Harry saw himself, Ron, and Hermione walking out with Hagrid. It was without a doubt the strangest sensation of his life, standing behind a tree and watching himself in the pumpkin patch. It's okay, Beaky. It's okay, Hagrid said to Buckbeak. Then he turned to Harry, Ron, and Hermione. Go on, get going. Hagrid, we can't. We'll tell them what really happened. They can't kill him. Go! It's bad enough without you lot in trouble and all. Harry watched the Hermione in the pumpkin patch throw the invisibility cloak over him and Ron. Go quick! Don't listen! There was a knock on Hagrid's front door. The execution party had arrived. Hagrid turned around and headed back to his cabin, leaving the back door ajar. Harry watched the grass flatten in patches all around the cabin and heard 3 pairs of feet retreating. He, Ron, and Hermione had gone, but the Harry and Hermione hidden in the trees could now hear what was happening inside the cabin through the back door. Where's the beast? Came the cold voice of McNair. Outside, Hagrid croaked. Harry pulled his head out of sight as McNair's face appeared at Hagrid's window, staring out at Buckbeak. And then they heard Fudge. We have to read you this official notice of execution, Hagrid. I'll make it quick, and then you and McNair need to sign it. McNair, you're supposed to listen too. That's procedure. McNair's face vanished from the window. It was now or never. Wait here, Harry whispered to Hermione. I'll do it. As Fudge's voice started again, Harry darted out from behind his tree, vaulted the fence into the pumpkin patch, and approached Buckbeak. It is the decision of the Committee for the Disposal of Dangerous Creatures that the Hippogriff Buckbeak, hereafter called the Condemned, shall be executed on the 6th of June at sundown. Careful not to blink, Harry stared up into Buckbeak's fierce orange eyes once more and bowed. Buckbeak sank to his scaly knees and then stood up again. Harry began to fumble with the knot of rope tying Buckbeak to the fence. Sentenced to the execution by beheading, to be carried out by the committee's appointed executioner, Walden McNair. Come on, Buckbeak, Harry murmured. Come on, we're going to help you. Quietly, quietly. As witnessed below, Hagrid, you need to sign here. Harry threw all his weight into the rope, but Buckbeak had dug in his front feet. Well, let's get this over with, said the reedy voice of the committee member from inside Hagrid's cabin. Hagrid, perhaps it would be better if you stay inside. No, I want to be with them. I don't want him to be alone. Footsteps echoed from within the cabin. Buckbeak, move! Harry hissed. Harry tugged harder on the rope around Buckbeak's neck. The hippogriff began to walk, rustling its wings irritably. They were still 10 feet away from the forest, in plain view of Hagrid's back door. One moment, please, McNair, came Dumbledore's voice. You need to sign it too. The footsteps stopped. Harry heaved on the rope. Buckbeak snapped its beak and walked a little faster. Hermione's white face was sticking out from behind a tree. "Harry, hurry!" she mouthed. Harry could still hear Dumbledore's voice talking from within the cabin. He gave the rope another wrench. Buckbeak broke into a grudging trot. They had reached the trees. "Quick, quick!" Hermione moaned, darting out from behind her tree, seizing the rope too and adding her weight to make Buckbeak move faster. Harry looked over his shoulder as they were now blocked from sight. They couldn't see Hagrid's garden at all. "Stop!" he whispered to Hermione. "They might hear us." Hagrid's back door had opened with a bang. Harry, Hermione, and Buckbeak stood quite still. Even the hippogriff seemed to be listening intently. Silence. Then, "Where is he?" said the reedy voice of the committee member. "Where's the beast?" "It was tied here," said the executioner furiously. "I saw it, just here." "How extraordinary," said Dumbledore. There was a note of amusement in his voice. "Beaky!" said Hagrid huskily. There was a swooshing noise and the thud of an axe. The executioner seemed to have swung it into the fence in anger. And then came the howling. And this time they could hear Hagrid's words through his sobs. "Gone! Gone! Bless this little Beaky's gone! Must have pulled himself free! Beaky, you clever boy!" Buckbeak started to strain against his rope, trying to get back to Hagrid. Harry and Hermione tightened their grip and dug their heels into the forest floor to stop him. "Someone untied him," said the executioner. "We should search the grounds, the forest." "McNair, if Buckbeak has indeed been stolen, do you really think the thief would have led him away on foot?" said Dumbledore, still sounding amused. "Search the skies, if you will. Hagrid, I could do with a cup of tea, or a large brandy." Of course, Professor," said Hagrid, who sounded weak with happiness. Come in, come in." Harry and Hermione listened closely. They heard footsteps, the soft cursing of the executioner, the snap of the door, and then silence once more. "Now what?" whispered Harry, looking around. "We'll have to hide in here," said Hermione. She looked very shaken. "We need to wait until they've gone back to the castle. Then we wait until it's safe to fly Buckbeak up to Sirius's window. We won't be there for a couple of hours. Oh, this is going to be difficult." She looked nervous over her shoulder into the depth of the forest. The sun was setting now. "We're going to have to move," said Harry, thinking hard. "We've got to be able to see the Whomping Willow, or we won't know what's going on." "Okay," said Hermione, getting a firmer grip on Buckbeak's rope. "But we've got to keep out of sight, Harry, remember?" They moved around the edge of the forest, darkness falling thickly around them, until they were hidden behind a clump of trees through which they could see the willow. "There's Ron," Harry said suddenly. A dark figure was sprinting across the lawn. And that's where we'll stop.